A legend crouches behind the plate and widens the strike zone of history. And for baseball, that legend is Yogi Berra. He was the catcher who turned chaos into choreography, the hitter who found line drives where others saw only shadows, the teammate whose presence made pressure feel like play. He won more World Series rings as a player than anyone before or since, mastered the dark arts of handling pitchers, and spoke in a poetry so crooked it came out truer than prose. World Series champion, master behind the plate, larger-than-life personality. The question rises like a pop foul near the screen and a glove that never flinches. How did Yogi Berra redefine what it meant to be a catcher? Begin where the legend begins. In St. Louis's The Hill, an Italian-American neighborhood that raised ball players and bakers with equal pride. Lawrence Peter Berra, Lorenzo Pietro at birth, was short, sturdy, and fearless. A street ball lifer whose wrists snapped line drives from the first day he could heft a bat. The Yankees signed him in 1943, but the war called louder. The Navy put him on a rocket boat at D-Day off Normandy, a teenager under fire before he ever faced a major league pennant race. When he reached the Yankees in 1946 at 21, he carried more than a catcher's mitt. He carried the calm of someone who knew what fear was and how to meet it without blinking. From 1946 to 1963, with a coda in 1965, his compact frame and outsized influence reshaped how a catcher could command a game and still hit in the heart of a lineup. The numbers are thunder-made visible. 18 All-Star selections across 15 seasons, reflecting the years MLB briefly held 2 All-Star games. 10 World Series championships as a player, an MLB record, 14 World Series appearances, 75 World Series games, and series records in games, at-bats, hits, singles, and games caught. A career 285 average, 358 home runs, 1,430 RBIs, 3 American League MVP awards, 1951, 1954, 1955, one of only a handful in history with 3, and one of only 2 catchers, alongside Roy Campanella, to do it. He entered the Hall of Fame in 1972 on the strength of dominion. Staffs he molded, running games he erased, and big hits delivered like clockwork. Yet numbers alone cannot hold Yogi. Catchers live where sightlines are obstructed and credit wanders, but he made the hidden work visible. When Don Larson authored perfection in Game 5 of the 1956 World Series, Berra's fingers called the symphony, the sequencing, the stubbornness to attack, the feel for what each pitch had left. The photograph that America remembers, Yogi vaulting into Larson's arms after the final strike, captures a truth. The catcher had been co-author all along. He caught 2 no-hitters. Allie Reynolds in 1951, Larson's World Series perfecto in 1956, led American League catchers in assists 5 times, and went 148 consecutive games at catcher without an error from 1957 to 1959. Runners learned caution. Berra cut down nearly half of would-be base stealers over his prime, turning momentum into out counts. He was deceptively quick, anchored, balanced, hard to dislodge, and if the first glance suggested a body built wrong for poetry, the second revealed there may be no better shape for it. Casey Stengel, who managed him through the dynasty years, said the quiet part out loud. The Yankees' arms were great because their catcher was great. Yogi handled stars and journeymen with the same patient cunning, remembering every hitter's swing, every pitcher's late life on a two-seamer, every umpire's inch, and he hit like a middle-of-the-order conscience. From 1949 to 1955, he led the Yankees in RBIs 7 straight seasons, steadying a team that featured DiMaggio's Twilight and Mantle's Dawn. The hardware came in rhythm. In 1951, he won his first MVP while guiding a staff to a title. In 1954, he drove in 125 runs and claimed a second MVP on a non-champion, an uncommon feat for a catcher. In 1955, he won again, with power, run production, and that relentless availability that defined him. From 1950 to 1957, he never finished below 4th in MVP voting. This was consistency as creed, a body absorbing foul tips and collisions, a bat delivering late-inning line drives, and a mind moving chess pieces with grace. The World Series became home. He played in 14, more than many franchises have seen, and left a ledger that reads like fiction. 75 games, 71 hits, 12 homers, 39 RBIs, and 63 games caught. In 1947, he delivered the first pinch-hit home run in World Series history. In 1955, the famous play at the plate with Jackie Robinson, Yogi thought he was out and argued forever, helps fix his competitive fire in memory. In 1956, he rode the last pitch of Larson's perfect game into an embrace that still speaks for October joy. He stitched eras together. He arrived when catchers were field generals first and offensive afterthoughts. He left the position taller, proving the job could be both fortress and engine. He was an all-star every year from 1948 to 1962, survived the two All-Star Game novelty of 1959 to 1962 to rack up 18 selections, and maintained leadership through constant turnover on the mound. He caught, he hit, he led, and did it so smoothly that he made two-way excellence feel natural. Beyond the gear, he lived a full baseball life. He had served in war, then spent nearly 4 decades in October as player, coach, or manager. In 1964, his first season managing the Yankees, he won the pennant. He moved across town to the Mets as coach and later manager, and returned to the Yankees as a coach during their late 1970s resurgence before finishing in Houston. In all, from the late 1940s through the early 1980s, he was on the field for 21 World Series as player, coach, manager, and 13 championships came to teams with Berra in uniform somewhere on the card. In a sport designed for parity, he bent probability toward autumn. Publicly, the Yogiisms turned him into a folk philosopher. It ain't over till it's over. You can observe a lot by watching. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. The lines stuck because the life behind them rang true. A relentless competitor who still found room for wonder. A Hall of Fame catcher who wore greatness lightly. He joked that he didn't say everything he said, and America loved him all the more for it. The sayings entered the language, but the substance remained. Berra's clarity cut through noise on the field and in life. Look closer at the craftsman. He led league catchers in assists, often because he anticipated bunts and dared base runners. He caught a record number of shutouts by reading swings, setting targets, and coaxing pitchers toward their best selves. At the plate, he was a reputed bad ball hitter. But the truth was subtler. He knew exactly which off-the-plate pitch he could punish and rarely missed when games turned tight. His strikeout totals were low for a power hitter, his contact punishing, his approach purposeful rather than wild. Stack him against the greats. Bill Dickey before him, Roy Campanella as his contemporary, Johnny Bench after, then Carlton Fisk, Gary Carter, Ivan Rodriguez, and beyond, and the outline stays sharp. Bench owned the 1970s with arm and power. Pudge built a defensive citadel. Campanella matched Berra's MVPs. But Yogi's resume spans categories like a bridge: peak MVP dominance, career longevity, unmatched team success, and a personal imprint on October. Catcher is often compromise. Hit a little less to defend a little more. Berra erased the either-or. He did both. Certain images crystallize the myth. The 1947 pinch-hit homer announces his October timing. The launch into Larson's arms engraves joyful victory as his signature. The holler that Jackie was out at home captures his certainty. The long parade of autumns, 21 World Series in uniform across roles, renders nearly 4 decades of baseball as one continuous September with Berra as constant. He managed and coached with sincerity and humor, the same qualities that steadied pitchers on the mound. The '64 pennant with the Yankees, the guiding hand with the Mets, the steadying presence back in the Bronx, the late career counsel in Houston. Every stop felt like a continuation of the catcher's job. See clearly, say little, decide wisely. If a team's compass is found in its quiet corners, Yogi lived where north stays north. He passed in 2015 at age 90, and the tributes told a story as complete as a box score and as warm as a clubhouse after a clinch. Teammates praised his steadiness. Rivals honored his competitive honesty. Fans reached instinctively for the photographs and phrases that had become part of American life. The Hall of Fame had already chiseled the obvious. The eulogies filled in what day-to-day greatness feels like: dependable, humble, and always ready. What makes Yogi Berra the most iconic catcher in baseball history is not only the mountain of rings or the height of his accolades, though he holds both in rare supply. It's the totality of the role he inhabited and expanded. Catcher as field general, psychologist, pitcher's conscience, opponent's riddle, lineup engine, October inevitability, and cultural ambassador whose words tunneled into daily speech. He was small enough to vanish behind the batter and big enough to fill a franchise's soul. He stood at the nexus of the game, every pitch, every decision, every heartbeat, and made that convergence look like clarity. There's a reason the position still measures itself against his standard. A catcher can put up power numbers and still not captain a staff. A catcher can throw lasers and still not find the ninth-inning single that breaks a deadlock. A catcher can wear leadership theatrically and still miss the quiet choices that win games. Yogi did the loud and the quiet, the measurable and the intangible, the highlight plays and the mound visits that never made headlines but altered seasons. Listen to the echoes. 10 rings on hands calloused by foul tips. 3 MVPs like armor against time. 75 World Series games. A lifetime of autumn in one man's October. 18 All-Star selections stretched over a decade and a half. And a phrase that feels less like a quip than a creed from someone who lived in late innings. It ain't over till it's over. The catcher's creed, the champion's compass, the fan's faith. If the work of a catcher is to give shape to a game that threatens to spill over at the edges, Yogi Berra gave shape to an era. From Normandy to the Bronx in October, from the masked anonymity of a receiver to a place in American culture, he stood where pressure consolidates and turned it into poise. The arc of baseball greatness usually starts at the mound or the plate. Yogi Berra proved the truest arc runs through the catcher, through the mind-reading swings, the hand-setting targets, the heart-convincing pitchers they're better than they feel. He made the hardest job look simple, and then he made it joyful. So when the lights burn brightest and the crowd becomes a weather system, imagine that small, sturdy figure settling into his stance, a shadow at the heart of the diamond. And remember what the position can be. World Series champion, master behind the plate, larger-than-life presence who taught America to laugh and to believe. Call it what it is, and call it clearly so the pitcher can see it and trust it. The most iconic catcher in baseball history is Yogi Berra because he didn't just play the position, he redefined it, then left every catcher after him chasing the echo of his standard.